Today on Locked On Canadiens, the lights will guide the Canadiens home, but unfortunately, it's down 2-0 in this series. Can the Bell Center get Montreal back in this thing?
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in to episode 1295 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us here on the show and ensures you don't miss an episode. And boy, we have one cooked up for you today, coming to you right after the Montreal Canadiens fell to the Washington Capitals in Game 2, going down 2-0 in the series. Another close one. We'll talk about everything that happened in the game. We have some thoughts on what's next for Patrik Laine in this series and how the Canadiens can try to get more out of Ivan Demidov because he's been pretty quiet to this point in this series. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian, and I'm joined by Laura Saba at the Actor Stick. Laura, I'm going to throw it to you. We do the emotions first, right? We're going to throw out our feelings right away. I'm giving you the floor. Your emotions, your thoughts on Game 2 in Washington.
So I do think that people will respond to this maybe potentially negatively because it's going to sound very Pollyanna. But for me, I still think the Canadiens are capable of winning the series. They've certainly made it harder on themselves. Absolutely. And if you look at the underlying numbers, if you look at the physicality, it is clear that they are outmatched against Washington. But what I really just want to remind everybody is how many times we said this. At the end of October, this team was second last in the NHL. Second last. We got to a point where making the playoffs was a given, right? They made it hard as well. They made it hard on themselves, and it took until the last game. But what I know, Ian has a little bit more of an analytical mind than I do, and he's going to talk about what actually led to the win. But what I saw from the Montreal Canadiens was the same thing that we saw all season. They didn't quit, right? They stepped up to the challenge, even in moments that they were unmatched. And they were physically overwhelmed in Game 1 for the first 10 minutes by the Washington Capitals. Nobody's denying that, right? If you look at the underlying numbers for today, the first period was fairly even between the two teams. The second period was extremely lopsided towards Washington, but then the third period was extremely lopsided towards Montreal, right? And a young team like this is definitely going to need to learn from these moments. And you can tell from their body language, down 2 games, this is not what they expected for themselves, right? They came in, they didn't show up here to get swept. They didn't show up to the playoffs to get swept. And I do want to remind people that, before the season even started, people said that this was the ideal outcome, was they get some playoff experience. Even if they get swept in the first round, it's still worth it. But
we were mocked for it roundly. We were mocked for going against the grain on that one by everyone. And now that it might happen, everyone's like, "Oh, this is terrible!" Like And what I find funny too is people who said Canadiens in 7, then expected them to win 4 in a row. Like that's not. If you pick them in 7, you're expecting them to lose 3. That's how you get to 7. But anyway, I interrupted you to just remind people that we might have been right, but also kind of wrong.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like, here's the thing. Like, I think as it's not, people say it's not over until you've lost at home. It's not over until you've lost 4 games, right? That's when it's over. And I really want to point out that what the Canadiens are doing is really whatever they're throwing everything they can at Logan Thompson, but it's masking what they're actually doing is they're learning from game to game and period to period, right? Martin St. Louis is making adjustments. I don't know where this narrative came out all of a sudden that Martin St. Louis is not a serious coach or he's a joke or whatever. We've seen it in our comments all over our social media, but that's not what's going on. He is a rookie coach. This is his first playoff series. And this is like the first playoff series for so many of these players. There's going to be a lot of issues, right? They're ironing out those kinks, but I still don't think it's over. I think we take a long series. We say they take the lessons because next year's when they're really supposed to take those strides forward. I still believe that. But I think the Caps are beatable. I'm not saying the Canadiens are better than the Caps. What I'm saying is the Caps look beatable to me. They look like a beatable team, as good as they are. And Logan Thompson doesn't look like a beatable goalie, but I'm not losing any hope because now they're heading home. The Bell Center, the last change, all of that. They have all of that. And For all of you that like climbed up the steps of the St. Joseph's Oratory after they lost to Chicago, for all of you that like, pulled out weird, lucky, do all of that. Do all of
Yeah.
that between now and Friday's game, because I think it's just we have to enjoy this ride, and we can't just count them out before they're actually out.
Yeah. I will take issue with the idea that Logan Thompson doesn't look beatable. I think he does look beatable. He makes a lot of incredible saves, don't get me wrong, but the Canadiens have hit 3 goalposts behind him in this series. Once in game 1, Cole Caulfield deflected a Nick Suzuki pass off the post. In this one, Jake Evans had an empty net to shoot at and hit the post. And then Juraj Slafkovsky, flailing around in front of the net, swings the puck and hits the post. So like I'm not saying he's a bum in there, quite the opposite. His play in the third period, I think, let Washington believe they could continue to play the type of game they wanted to play, which was sort of just go into a shell and try to protect the lead. There's a lot of saves in there that though you look back on and you go, wow, that was an incredible save. There was the deflection, the Cole Caulfield one where he tipped it right in the slot. Sam Montembeault made a save very similar to that earlier on in the game on Dylan Strome. The breakaway that was very funny, that it looked like Dvorak was going to have a 2-on-0 with Anderson and then was like, I'm gassed, you take it, Josh. And then I would have, knowing Josh Anderson's track record on the breakaway, I would have rather maybe just Dvorak shoot it from wherever he stopped skating, quite frankly. But look, I don't think that Logan Thompson is unbeatable, especially early on in the game. I thought the first shot that the Canadiens got on, it didn't even go on net. It ended up going wide. It was Cole Caulfield right in the slot, and it was by Logan Thompson before he had a chance to react. So I think the Canadiens are missing a lot of opportunities. Like, this game is so different if Jake Evans buries that, right? We're tied in the third period. Maybe Montreal continues to push. One thing that I think the Canadiens have going for them right now is I think they are far more capable of making Washington super nervous than anyone would have thought. We saw it in game 1, where as soon as they scored that first goal in the third period, Washington was like, oh crap. And everybody in the crowd, you could feel how nervous that building was. You can sort of get the same sort of sense in this game, where, as the game went on in the third period, the building got nervous. We give Canadiens fans a lot of crap for olaying at the wrong times, but they're not like, head cases about it. It's not like they're not, most of the time not super nervous, especially with this team. Because again, let's set the perspective here. I know they're down 2-0. The perspective for me that I'm continuing to have is they were in both of these games, despite the fact that they did not have their best efforts in either of them, which means that there's a core here that makes sense, and they have the goalie to get it done as well. Montembeault was fantastic again. He was a guy that, if you had told me before the series the Canadiens are going to go down 2-0, I would have said, well, Montembeault's probably been pretty bad. And that couldn't be further from the truth. He's been spectacular for the Canadiens. Look, I think that the Bell Center is the great equalizer in this. It has to be if you're the Canadiens heading into that building. Because if you get one and you win game 3, all of a sudden the pressure's really on Washington there, because if you don't, it's a best of 3 series at that point. Yeah. And that's a scary proposition for Washington, because, again, Montreal's playing with house money. They don't have any pressure on them right now. And, if Washington, as the series goes on, their margin for error gets smaller, right? They can only afford so many bad bounces to go their way or go against them before this series is over. Again, I don't know. I think the Canadiens can still win it. The odds are obviously against them. But we're seeing them play through this. We're seeing them get into these situations. That top line is out there when the season is on the line, right? They're out there all the time, and they're generating chances. They look genuinely good in those moments. I'll give you the last word on this game as we leave game 2 and head to Montreal for game 3.
So I know that there was a lot of sideshows with the officiating and the hits and all of that. I just want everyone to focus not on that, right? Because it doesn't matter how angry we get, the officiating is not going to get any better. It's just the way it is, right? They put away their whistles, then they think the game's going way too out of control, so they choose a couple of choice penalties, all of that. So that's going to be something that's always going to be an X factor. We're not going to know how it's going to go. Like, what I
Yeah.
want people to focus on is just watching the team come together, because they are getting better moment by moment, right? Like, you take away those 3 minutes in that second period, you look at them just build on what they're doing. And yes, some people are not looking all that great. We're going to get into that in the second and third, but just watch this team get better moment by moment, play by play, right? Look at them at the end of the first game. Look at them at the end of the second game, right? At some point, this team is going to be able to do that for 60 minutes, and that's when they're going to start contending.
Yep. No, absolutely. And my final note on that officiating is this is a feature, not a bug. This is how the NHL wants these games decided, because if they didn't, they would do it another way. They like this. It's good for drama, it's good for storylines, it's good for narratives. They like it. So we're the only people who don't, and we're the ones who consume this slop every year. Anyway, we'll leave that there. When we come back, we have to talk about Patrik Laine, because he did not touch the ice at all in the third period. And I'm starting to wonder if we've seen the last of him in this playoffs. And we'll get into that in just a minute. The NBA and NHL playoffs are underway. We're talking about these games all the time on this show, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly, no waiting around. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team to win or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel makes it easy to bet on your favorite players. Don't forget about the NHL, though. Saves. There's a lot of goaltending in this Canadian series. It turned into a goalie duel all of a sudden. And I love the anytime goal scorer. It's fun to pick one and get doubly excited when they put one in the net. Plus, after the game kicks off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, Laura. We have a reoccurring issue here in one Patty Laine.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows that's my guy, right? Everybody has a guy that is theirs. He's mine. I wanted him here. I've wanted him here forever. It's not working right now. And I don't know what is happening. He's obviously not, he's never skated well in a Montreal Canadiens uniform, thanks to Cedric Paré, who, by the way, I find it's important to note, he has not touched the ice in an NHL game this year, Cedric Paré, which I mentioned not to be like, haha, good, he didn't make the NHL. I mentioned it to be like, what the heck was he doing in that game? Like, this is what I mean about the preseason being completely useless, is the teams decide to make it useless by putting plugs like Cedric Paré in, who have no shot of playing in the NHL and can only do damage to actual NHL players. Anyway, I'll leave that there. Laine didn't touch the ice in the third period, and it was sort of building. You could see it happening. He was making a lot of mistakes with the puck. And I think the final straw was probably that second power play that the Canadiens got, where he wasn't shooting. And when he did shoot and he got a one-timer, he flubbed it. He flubbed them all. It looked like his stick turned into a pool noodle and the puck just bounced off of it. Have we seen the end of Laine in this series?
I think we're definitely not going to see him in game 3. I think that's a safe bet. Like, he was stapled to the bench. Marty does give chances, but I think if you take the very end of game 1 and all of game 2, it does not add up to being played in game 3, right? And I think the mistakes that he made in game 1 were kind of exaggerated. You know, a lot of blame was put on him for things that weren't necessarily entirely his fault. It was, it was other
as
things.
Has been the story throughout the year, right? Like, that's not new.
Yeah. He does look incapable of skating, and a lot of people pointed that out. And there are definitely people in this fan base where, like, opposite to you, where like everyone has that one scapegoat guy, and Patrik Laine is it for them, right?
Yeah.
And
I find myself
so
defending those guys a lot. Matheson's the other one. You know, like I'm very much team leave these guys alone. I feel like the leave Brittany alone guy, but
but
for guys I like.
for the guys. Matheson was actually pretty decent in this game. Like we do
I
have to
thought he
talk
was
about that. I
okay.
thought he wasn't like
Yeah.
there was no egregious mistakes. He didn't score. We would have loved for him to score, right? He didn't orchestrate the comeback, but I thought he was pretty decent in this game. He didn't cost us anything, which is
Yeah.
really important. He didn't make me want to throw a shoe at my television. I think that's great for Mike Matheson. But anyways, back to Laine. So I think a lot of people though were pointing it out like there's something like either the injuries aggravated or something like that. And I feel bad for him because like he does seem to be the kind of guy that has that desire to be intense in the playoffs. He's just not intense at all. He seems like
Yeah.
he's just there for the ride. And then I think it's doing the same thing. It's compounding in his head. It's like I made a mistake. Oh no, now I can never score a goal and then I'm going to shoot, I'm going to flub. Oh no, that's worse. Now I'm going to cause a defensive error, right?
Yeah.
So I think with Patrik Laine, we definitely aren't going to see him in game 3, whether that's for resting, for mental resting, or for to send a message. I don't know. I feel like they put Kapanen in because throughout the season, Marty has done the thing where he puts Laine on that fourth line and puts someone else in that on that second line as a message.
Yeah.
I don't think that the playoffs is the time to do that, and I don't see Marty doing that. I think he just straight up switches him out for Kapanen. I think that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
And
I
so
agree.
I know we're going to talk a little bit later about like we thought that Demidov was going to get switched out for for Kapanen, but
Yeah.
unfortunately it's Patrik Laine. And I think the sad thing is the Canadians don't really have any other options other than putting in Kapanen.
That's Michael Pezzetta erasure, Laura. We can't do that.
We're going to put
No.
Michael Pezzetta on the wing of Alex Newhook along with Ivan
Yeah.
Demidov or Yvon Demitov or whatever.
Yeah.
I got yelled at for calling him Yvon. What am I supposed to call him? His name's not
Yvon
Yvon.
Demidov is his name. That's how it's pronounced. If you have an Elite Prospects account and you have the special Elite Prospects Plus, you can go to his account and listen to how the name is pronounced. It's Yvon Demidov. So
Yvon Demitov. There we go. Yvon Demitov. I'm correct.
look, I mean, you are technically incorrect that they don't have another option. They do. It's Michael Pezzetta. You are functionally correct in that that's not an option, right? I think let's cover all of our bases there.
Yeah.
I find it sad because I think the whole season for Laine comes down to that injury in the preseason. He's never been like a plus skater in his career, but you can tell like it's still bothering him. It's still bugging him.
He's
It
like
probably,
an old man.
yeah, yeah, and it probably didn't help was Nick Dowd kneeing him in the middle of that game. And on the other knee, it was not the same knee. I believe his right knee was the one he injured at the beginning of the year, and this was his left knee that Nick Dowd just stuck his knee out and decided I'm taking that into the boards. It was completely gutless from a player who's done nothing but gutless stuff in the series so far. So, nothing to see there. But yeah, I think it's Kapanen coming in, and I don't know that if you do make that decision, that you're probably right. You're probably just taking Laine off of Newhook's line and you're putting Kapanen there, because the alternative for that is you bring Heineman back up to that line, and at that point you've now taken 2/3 of your fourth line and have put them with Alex Newhook, and you've given Jake Evans 2 rookies to play with. So like I don't know that that's a particularly smart option. So if you're making that switch, it's just in and out. Now, the fun part, the power play. If Laine's not there, what's the plan? Is it just we'll just put Cole in that spot and do the same thing, and I don't know, put Armia out there? Because I don't think they're going to put Demidov out on power play 1 if Laine's out. I just don't think they'll do that to him. I hope they do, but I just don't know that Marty will do that yet. Like, is that the play? We're just going to put Cole and run it back. We're going to do the same plan.
It sounds like the most Canadians thing ever to do,
Yeah.
right? The power play. It's not inspiring. I will be really shocked if they put Demidov there, but at this point, what are you going to lose? You're down 2-0 in the series, and he's clearly you don't want to play him in defensive situations. Like, what's a better offensive opportunity than putting him on power play 1? Right?
Yeah, I think it makes tons of sense. But again, like, some of Marty's first words when Demidov got here were he's not a savior. And I worry that he thinks if I put him on there,
People will think he's a savior.
Well, we're kind of sending the message, right? Well, our season's on the line. Here you go, kid. Power play 1. The example I always think of was it was Michel Therrien did this, and I believe even Claude Julien did this, where Alex Galchenyuk was like a third or fourth line winger for like most of the game, and then late in the game, he would be like, "Okay, you're on the ice with the goalie pulled. You're our center now. You have to win the game for us." It's like that's unfair to that player. You set them up for the entire game of thinking I'm a fourth liner, and then at the last minute go, "Okay, it's your responsibility to win us this game." I'm not saying they're the same sort of, I felt like there was a lot of malice intended with those decisions. In this case, it's more so just you're trying to manage expectations for this player, not only for us about that player, but for the player of himself, of Demidov coming in. His goal right now should really just be learning the NHL pace, learning how to play in this league. It's really hard to do. We're going to talk about Demidov more in our final segment, so I don't want to get too far into that.
I do want to mention one thing. If you remember, it was 3-1 series against Toronto. One Dominique Ducharme refused to play certain players for the first 2 games, had no choice, put them in the third game, and the rest was history, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of similar to that, in that you're refusing to give the fans what they want. You're refusing to do a thing that's a risk. It's a risk, right? But what if it works? Why not?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, why not? And as the value of the risk is going to go, like the negative value associated with that risk is going to decrease as they continue to lose in this series. Because like if you go down 3-0, well, what do you have to lose? The way you're doing things, you're losing. So like you kind of have more of an appetite for change at that point.
Yeah. And you're just shaking things up, and you send the message that you're just shaking things up. It's not all on you. I'm just trying something different. Go out there and see what you can do. Not show me what you got. Go out there, see for yourself what you can do.
Yep, absolutely. All right, we're going to leave that there. When we come back, we talked about Yvon Demitov a little bit there about getting him on the power play, but let's try to figure out how we can get more out of him in general across this series, and we'll get into that in just a moment. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Trust me, I've been there. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you just stop managing your money and you can start building wealth instead. I started using Monarch to get a better grasp on my spending. When I started using it, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Spoiler alert, it was a lot. Now I budget smarter, and I definitely save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, from credit card apps to banking apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without any other stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right, a peek behind the curtain for our friends who are not part of our group chat, because it's just me, you, and Scott. Midway through this game, I said, I think you might have to take Demidov out and put Kapanen in because you're just not getting anything out of him. Patrik Laine said, hold my beer. he said, I will do even less and not even play the third period. Your move, Yvon. Like that seems to be what happened here. So they're now at a point, we're assuming that Laine isn't going to play game 3 because he didn't play at all in the third and he didn't look all that great, and it would make a lot of sense. So working from that assumption, Demidov is not only going to play, he has to. And they're kind of going to need to rely on him for secondary scoring. Mm-hmm. What do you think is causing a lot of the difficulty with trying to get him involved more offensively?
I think he spent a season playing minimal minutes out of spite. And he's adjusting to a different game, a different speed of game, a different physicality. He's adjusting. He's in a spotlight right now, right? And I don't think it's really surprising, right? It's just that usually they come over about 10 games before And this is ironed out by the time they make the playoffs when we see things like this, right? So I also think that he's adjusting to playing with the players that he's playing. And I feel like he's trying to do too much because every time I see him try to make a defensive play, it looks like it looks to me like, again, this is confirmation bias, right? It looks like 100% of the time he's making the mistake. And I'm sure
Right.
that's not it, right? It's also, I feel like there's the knock on his game is like, well, can he do the back check? Can he defend? And so I think he's thinking about that too much. I think you sit him down and you have a conversation and you say, focus on what you're good at, right? Like the same way that you put him out on the power play and you don't say it's all on you, kid. You say, see what you got, see for yourself what you can do, right?
Yeah.
Learn for yourself. And so you turn around and you tell him, like, I'm seeing you trying to do a lot of defensive stuff, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of offensive risks. I'm seeing
Yeah.
defensive risks, right? I do really quickly want to mention, because we keep forgetting, we do have a contest, a
Oh yeah.
subscriber contest. I know we're in the middle of a conversation. We'll get back to that, but we just keep forgetting. Ian is giving away his signed Josh Anderson picture as well as his signed Arbor Jacki picture. We're giving them away to subscribers. So at the moment we hit 4,500 subscribers, we do a draw for Josh Anderson. And then the moment we hit 5,000, we do a draw for Arbor Jacki. You have to be subscribed and you just have to put contest entry in the comments on YouTube once. You don't need to mention it ever again. As soon as you see it, we're going to put it in a draw, and it, like, that one entry is eligible for both draws. It's just that we're going to hit the 4,500 subscriber mark before we do a draw. All right. Back to
There you
Ivan
go.
Demidov.
Yeah.
I think it's a conversation thing. And it's just really, you kind of also have to ask yourself as the coach, like, what am I hoping to get out of this playoff series, right? I made it here. This is year 3 of a rebuild. Nobody expected us to be here. I probably didn't expect us to be here. I probably thought, right, like, we wanted to be in the mix. We wanted to be playing meaningful games. So now that you're playing meaningful games in April, you have to think about what's more important to you, giving Ivan Demidov that experience or winning the series, because I think both options are absolutely legit. I just think that Marty is hardwired to win and to want to win.
Yeah.
Right? But for
I
me,
also
like,
think
sorry, go on.
Marty thinks that Demidov can give him that chance to win, right? Like that's a wild card player right now because we don't really know what he's capable of. Yes, he had those moments in Chicago or against Chicago rather. But he hasn't really produced since, and that's sort of fine for a 19-year-old to come over here. We keep saying no one expected us to be here. You know who didn't expect to be here? Yvon Demitov. He didn't expect to be playing in Montreal until next fall. So I think, I don't know if all of that's caught up to him yet. It's tough to know, but I think I liked what they did in this game where they put him on the quote unquote fourth line because they gave him a good center in Jake Evans to win faceoffs. Newhook only won 25% of his draws in the first game. He won 40% of them in game 2. And he was generally winning more of them in the offensive zone. So it's funny, they got Demidov away from him. And then he's like, okay, I can actually start winning these now. It's fine. But, I think that's not enough. I hope that the series moving back to Montreal is a way for the Canadiens. It's going to be a way for them to better control the matchup and be able to get him out there in situations that they find favorable. But he needs time and space right now to create because he's not going to create it on his own. He's not of that size. He's just not that kind of player. And it's the playoffs. There just isn't any, right? Like
Right.
they're closing the gap on these guys so quickly. And they know, the Capitals know they're going up against a kid. They know I can just go in there and muscle him around and get him off the puck. That's going to change eventually if he develops into the player we think he's going to be, because they'll have to respect his ability to go right through you. It's a lot like Kucherov, right? Like you cannot overplay him because he'll just go around you. I don't know that we're going to see him, Demidov, that is, I don't know that we're going to see him fully just turn it on and dominate a game in this series. And that's okay. Like, I think we all
We just need secondary scoring from him.
Yeah. And it's not only just from him, right? Like the Dvorak line finally got going. It would have been nice for Newhook and Laine to get something going. Newhook is like right there. I saw someone post almost
That
Newhook.
He's gonna see that missed goal in his nightmares.
Yeah. He's all like, we went from almost Eller, who's in this series, to almost Bork to now almost Newhook. Like that's where
Yeah.
we're at. Like that's just the kind of player he is.
He's
So
gonna
I
be
don't know.
thinking about that all the way home. He's gonna be thinking about
Yeah.
that for the next few days.
Yeah, it's
Like,
a miserable thought that
yeah.
he's gotta worry about that. But look, like that's the playoffs. I don't know that Demidov is going to be able to create any more room for himself. They need to get creative. Maybe if Laine is sitting, maybe it's time to put him on power play 1, but I just don't think Marty will do it. I just don't think that that's a move he wants to do. And we'll see how hard he wants to stick to that. We'll see how much that matters to him, or if he just thinks, look, this kid can win us this can get us some points on the power play. We need to put him out there.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. Like, I think either way, there's no wrong answer because this is uncharted waters, right? For this coach, it's uncharted waters for this team. It's something where yes, they were thinking about it as they got closer to making the playoffs, and as it became clear that they were going to be playing the Caps. Yes, they thought about it. Yes, they planned for it. The coaches talked about it, et cetera, et cetera. I think that when you're living in that situation, though, it's very different, and so you do kind of have to see, like, if it's obvious you're not going to be winning this series and you have nothing left to lose, you just throw everything out there and try to get them the maximum experience in the maximum situations possible. If you think there's a
Yeah.
possibility of winning, maybe you hesitate a little bit, and I hope that he makes the right decision and gives him a shot.
Yeah. Again, what I think it comes down to is, are those two questions answered by the same thing? Is Demidov not only developing but giving you the best chance to win? Like that would be the ideal scenario. But if that's not possible, Marty is going to have to pick a lane and hope that somebody else can get going. All right. Well, we're going to have plenty of time between now and game 3 to continue to dissect that and further lineup changes that may or may not happen. We've already kind of just written Laine out of the lineup, but we have no reason to believe he's not going to play just yet. So stick around. We'll have you guys covered with any more changes that come in between now and game 3 on Friday. Let's hit our trivia and head out of here for the evening.
Oh, and plug our next show. We're doing the show with Game Over. The mailbag is
you
with
want
Game
to
Over. So yes, please send mailbag questions that you want answered by Andrew Berkshire and potentially Kay Imam of Game Over Montreal. That's our next episode. So
terrific. Yep, I can't wait. I haven't been on a show with Andrew in forever, so that'll be nice. That'll be good
in
to
like
do.
2 years.
All right. Yeah, it's been a minute.
It's been forever.
All right, let's do our trivia and head out of here. Yesterday's question: when was the last time the Habs lost game 1 of a series in overtime? Do you remember the answer to this one, Laura?
The answer to this one is the Canadiens lost to Tampa Bay, but not in 2021. This was the series in 2015 where they lost in overtime. Did not go well for the Canadiens.
Yeah, game 1, round 2 against Tampa. They lost 2-1 in overtime. Kucherov scored a little over 2 minutes into overtime. The series ended up going. What's that?
I hate that guy.
Well, and this will not help in the matter, but this was before the offside challenge, and Kucherov was clearly offside. The Lightning were clearly offside on the play that resulted in the goal. I remember Michel Therrien was very mad about it. I missed it live, but then everybody was posting it afterwards, like they were offside by a few feet. It wasn't close. Tampa ended up going up that series 3-0, but Montreal won games 4 and 5 to try to climb back in the series, but they ended up falling in 6. So no one had the answer to that one, but maybe they will be some more folks who know the answer to this one. When was the last time the Canadiens came back from down 2-0 in a playoff series? So 2-0 hole in a playoff series. When was the last time the Canadiens came back to win that series? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below. Email it to us. Send us on Instagram. We'll shout you out on the next episode of the show and tell everybody how smart you are. But that's going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports us here on the show and ensures you don't miss an episode. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national stage from people like us. You'll see us appear on there every once in a while. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL or YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also available on Amazon Fire TV. On your free Fire TV channels app, click the Montreal Canadiens logo in the hockey section, and you can watch all of our episodes there as well. We're Locked On Canadiens everywhere we post things: Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok. Follow us on all those platforms to get more stuff from us. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Hang in there, guys. Game 3 coming home. Let's see if the Canadiens can climb back in this one. We'll see you guys tomorrow.